Hello and welcome to the Inns of Court Armoured Car Regiment channel. Today we'll be covering the events of August the 14th to August the 17th of 1944, Falaise Pocket, Part 1. Hope you enjoy, and without not much further ado. August the 14th. A Squadron was again called upon to attempt a recce towards Conde and Falaise. Following the route that had been previously reconnoitred by D Squadron through Lassie to La Roque, they passed the still smouldering wreck of Lieutenant Howdall's scout car and met light enemy resistance at La Roque. B Squadron was relieved from its positions at Linodel without complaint. C Squadron came under the command of the 11th Armoured Division in order to assist with reconnaissance. However, no progress was made all day. Thunderbolts also made a call, giving a troop from A Squadron quite the scare. August the 15th. The full regiment officially came under the command of the 11th Armoured Division, which they had already established a working relationship with previously. The enemy appeared to be withdrawing from their positions south of the Villers to Estry road. Therefore, the Inns of Court's first task was to re-establish contact with the enemy. In order to do so, the regiment patrolled ahead of two brigade elements of the 11th Armoured Division, these being the 29th Armoured Brigade and the 159th Infantry Brigade. A Squadron took up the centre between the two brigades, while D Squadron took up the right flank and B Squadron took up the left flank. The day began with a very heavy mist which made reconnaissance a slow and difficult affair. However, at 0900 hours the mist cleared. Sergeant J. Stewart of A Squadron managed to lead his light sabre troop of scout cars through La Roque. Here they were faced with a road south which had been mined for several hundred yards. Sergeant Stewart dismounted and proceeded to clear 40 of the telemines while under fire. The second scout car provided covering fire throughout this action as he cleared a route down the centre of the road sufficient to get the armoured cars through. Sergeant Stewart then proceeded to direct the armoured cars down the road, being injured by enemy fire in the process, but carrying on until ordered out of action to have his wounds seen to. For this action, Sergeant J. Stewart was awarded the military medal. Lieutenant H. Ashby took over command of the leading elements of A Squadron and pressed on towards Vassy. However, on his way he also ran into a mined patch of road, which he also proceeded to lift and demine. Once the road was clear, he proceeded into Vassy, where he reported the main bridges over the river Le Tortillon had been destroyed. He also managed to identify a minor crossing of the river to the east of Vassy, over which A Squadron crossed. Patrols from the other squadrons reached Vassy along the main road from La Fille without incident. Before the 11th Armoured Division could proceed through Vassy, they had to wait for the way to be cleared by bulldozers. But once the route through Vassy had been cleared, two routes were open to the 11th Armoured Division to advance their tanks in the afternoon. The enemy were not encountered until the river Le Gorgesson, south of Vassy, which halted progress for the day. August 16th. The Falaise pocket began to collapse, and in doing so, progress was beginning to pick up. B and C squadrons were to recce from Vassy towards Falaise, ahead of the 11th Armoured Division. D Squadron was to recce the route from Lassie to Conde. B and C squadrons found the bridges at Cerise-Belle-et-Toulon intact and continued towards Falaise, although a brisk encounter with the enemy ensued shortly after, in which Trooper Eldridge became detached from his squadron. A Squadron moved up to the bridge at Cerise-Belle-et-Toulon to secure it from any potential counterattack that might cut off the forward elements of the regiment. Once the enemy force had been dealt with, B and C Squadron pressed on, and at Saint-Paul the contact was made with the 3rd British Division. B Squadron found the bridges over the River Villers destroyed and were unable to make any further progress. Meanwhile, D Squadron was experiencing great difficulty due to booby traps and mines laid upon their route. One such mine destroyed a half-track, killing Sergeant G. Morgan, Trooper A. J. A. Perks, and Trooper W. S. Hush, and seriously wounding 3 others. Trooper Eldridge managed to link up with the rest of his squadron that evening, much to his own and everybody's surprise. August 17th. A Squadron departed from Cerise-Belle-et-Toulon and crossed the River Vire at first light, and soon made its way on to Arbosson. The western outskirts of Falaise were soon reached, but the road further on was found to be mined. However, a great deal of assistance was granted to the British forces by the French civilians, who roped off mined roads with warning notices written in English, and who also unmasked and marked the location of mines. A clear route was found, and A Squadron managed to enter Falaise, being the first British force to do so. A Squadron then began to head toward Briouze, before being relieved by D Squadron. D Squadron managed to reach Briouze, where they made contact with the 5th US Corps. However, en route, Corporal V.C. Baines was killed by a sniper. A squadron headed north through Ronfugera to recce the bridges over the River Rouven. It was found that the bridges at Tallyboys and Briel had been destroyed. At Tallyboys, Lieutenant D.B. Archer dismounted and carried out a detailed reconnaissance of the bridge and its approaches while under fire. These details enabled Royal Engineers to bridge the River Rouven at Tallyboys overnight. For these actions, Lieutenant D.B. Archer was awarded the Military Cross. The letters BLA, standing for British Liberation Army, began to mean a great deal to the troops, as throughout the day the regiment were greeted and cheered by civilians, and welcomed to every liberated town and hamlet. Flowers, fruit and wine were given freely and gratefully received, although the troops found that their stocks of cigarettes were running low or had been exhausted by the time that they harboured for the night. Losses over these days were 4 killed and 3 injured, with 1 half-track knocked out. References are on screen, and I hope you can join me on August the 18th for the next video in the Inns of Court War Diary series. This will be Falaise Pocket Part 2. Cheerio.